They say a wedding dress is a woman's most treasured garment. For me, it was supposed to be more than that. It was supposed to be proof that I was worth something in my mother's eyes. But the night I found out she'd given it away to my sister behind my back, I realized the truth. I was never her daughter. I was just the seamstress in her shadow. My name is Elena Ramirez, 29 years old. I've never been anyone's favorite. Not in my family, not in love, not even in my own dreams. My younger sister, Sophie, is the golden one. Blonde hair, green eyes, a smile that could light up a room. She got the grades, the attention, the engagement ring from a man with money. Me? I got silence. The kind that follows you into every room, reminding you you're only there to serve. But I had one thing that was mine. The dress. I designed it myself 2 years ago, when I still thought maybe one day I'd meet someone who saw me. I spent every spare dollar from my job at a little alterations shop downtown, buying fabric piece by piece. Italian lace, French satin, seed pearls I stitched by hand. I poured myself into it. Nights bent over my machine, pricking my fingers until they bled, whispering that someday, somehow, it would matter. It wasn't just a dress. It was a promise. Then Sophie got engaged. From the moment she flashed her ring at Sunday dinner, I knew the house would revolve around her. My mother, Isabel, clapped like a child. My father raised a toast. I smiled, like always, trying not to let the familiar ache in my chest show. Of course, Sophie will need the perfect gown, my mother said, her eyes glowing. Something custom, something no other bride could have. I lowered my gaze, stirring my coffee. And in that moment, I should have known. The weeks blurred by in fittings and chatter. Sophie paraded through bridal boutiques while my mother trailed behind her, shaking her head at price tags. Nothing's good enough, she complained one afternoon. That night, I came home from work to find my sewing room door ajar. My dress, the one I'd folded carefully in muslin, hidden at the back of my closet, was gone. My chest went tight. I searched every corner, tearing through fabric bins, pulling open drawers. Nothing. Finally, I heard laughter from downstairs. Sophie twirled in the living room. In my dress. The lace hugged her shoulders, the satin flowing just the way I'd imagined for myself. My mother clasped her hands, tears in her eyes. It's perfect, Sophie. Absolutely perfect. I froze in the doorway. That's mine. Sophie turned, smiling like a cat with cream. It's a dress, Elena, and you weren't using it. My mother's eyes cut into me, sharp as scissors. Don't be selfish. This is Sophie's moment. You should be proud your work will shine. My throat burned, words tangling on my tongue. They didn't even ask. My dream had been stolen, and they acted as if I should be grateful. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my hands aching with phantom stitches. I thought of every hour I'd spent on that gown, every drop of blood, every whisper of hope sewn into the seams. And I realized something I'd never dared admit before. They didn't just take my dress. They'd taken my place in this family, and I wasn't sure I could ever get it back. The morning after I found Sophie in my dress, my mother acted like nothing had happened. She was at the stove, humming as she fried eggs, her gold bracelet clinking against the pan. Sophie came down in a silk robe, her phone buzzing non-stop with messages from bridesmaids and vendors. She was glowing, radiant in a way that only comes from being adored. I sat quietly at the table, my coffee turning cold. Elena, my mother said suddenly, you'll be Sophie's maid of honor. Naturally, I opened my mouth to object, but Sophie clapped her hands. Perfect! You can handle all the details. You're so good at that. Not once did they ask if I wanted it. My mother simply nodded, as if it were a duty I'd been born for. Sophie's engagement became a full-time performance. Our evenings turned into planning sessions where Sophie made lists and my mother crossed out anything that wasn't extravagant enough. Imported orchids, a live harpist, crystal chandeliers. I kept my head down, scribbling notes, calling vendors, bargaining prices. All the while, Sophie tossed her hair and laughed about how organized I was. Organized. That was their word for me. Not beautiful, not brilliant, just useful. One night, I stayed up late hemming a client's gown in the sewing shop. The owner, Mrs. Carter, found me there, hunched over the machine. "Elena," she said softly. "You look exhausted. You've taken too much on." I shrugged, forcing a smile. "It's for my sister. It's important to her." Mrs. Carter studied me for a long moment before shaking her head. "Be careful, dear. Sometimes families will use you until there's nothing left." Her words settled in my chest like stones, but I pushed them aside. This was Sophie's wedding. If I did everything right, maybe, just maybe, my mother would look at me differently. By midsummer, Sophie's face was plastered across social media. Every detail of her engagement documented. Photos of her ring, champagne toasts, boutique fittings. I was always behind the camera, never in the frame. At a dinner with relatives, my mother beamed as Sophie described her vision. "She's always been special," my mother said proudly. "She deserves the best." An aunt turned to me. "And what about you, Elena? Any plans for a wedding of your own?" I swallowed hard. "No, not yet." My mother chuckled, patting Sophie's hand. "Elena's always been better at helping others shine." The table erupted in laughter. I forced a smile, but inside I was unraveling. Back home that night, Sophie twirled in my dress again, admiring herself in the mirror. "You really did a good job, Elena. I almost feel bad it's wasted on me."
She laughed, tossing her hair.
"Oh, don't be petty. Think of it this way. You'll get to walk me down the aisle in spirit. Isn't that sweet?" My mother, passing by, stopped to glare at me. "Don't ruin this for her, Elena. Don't you dare." I went to bed that night with my jaw aching from clenching it, my pillow damp with silent tears. For years, I'd told myself it didn't matter if they overlooked me, that one day they'd see. But now, watching Sophie live the life I'd secretly dreamed of, in the dress I'd made with my own hands, I realized something dark. They would never see me. Not unless I forced them to. By August, the wedding had consumed everything. Our house, our conversations, even my dreams. Sophie's voice was constant. "Book the violinist. Find a photographer who can retouch my arms thinner. Call the caterer. Lobster, not chicken." She issued commands like royalty, and I, the loyal servant, obeyed. One Saturday, our parents hosted a barbecue to celebrate Sophie's engagement. Relatives crowded the backyard, sipping wine, clapping her on the back. I worked the grill, sweating in the late heat, while Sophie flitted from guest to guest, her ring catching the sunlight. "Isn't she radiant?" my mother whispered loudly, pride dripping from every syllable. "Elena's helping, of course, but Sophie's the star." The words stung sharper than the smoke in my eyes. When it came time for speeches, my father clinked his glass. "To Sophie," he boomed, "for finding a man who will give her the life she deserves. And to Elena, for making sure everything goes smoothly." The crowd chuckled politely. Applause thundered for Sophie. A few scattered nods for me. My father didn't even look in my direction. Later, as I carried trays of empty glasses into the kitchen, I overheard Sophie and 2 cousins giggling on the porch. "Honestly," Sophie said, "I don't know what Elena will do when I'm gone. She has no life of her own." One cousin laughed. "She's like your assistant." Sophie's voice was syrupy sweet. "Exactly. She's good at being useful. Not everyone's meant to shine." Their laughter followed me like daggers. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after everyone had gone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through my bank app. Every cent I had saved, every overtime shift at the shop, every canceled night out was tied up in deposits for Sophie's big day. I'd spent $7,000 of my own savings. Money I would never get back. And for what? To be called useful? To be treated like an assistant? My mother appeared in the doorway, her robe cinched tight, her face stern. "You need to stop sulking, Elena. This is your sister's moment." I swallowed hard. I've given everything to this family. Doesn't that matter? Her eyes narrowed. "Don't make this about you. Sophie deserves happiness. You should be grateful you can contribute." Grateful. The word rattled inside me, hollow and cruel. After she left, I opened my sewing kit, pulling out the scraps of lace I'd saved from my dress. I ran my fingers over the fabric, remembering the nights I'd stitched with hope, whispering promises to myself that one day I'd be seen. But as I sat there, listening to the silence of a house that had never loved me, a truth sank deep into my bones. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I gave, they would never see me. And maybe it was time I stopped waiting for them to. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sophie stormed into my room without knocking. Her face was flushed, her hands clutching a glossy bridal magazine. She slapped it down on my desk. "This," she said, pointing to a picture of a gown dripping in Swarovski crystals, "is the dress I need. Not want, need." I blinked. The price tag made my stomach turn. "Sophie, that's over $12,000. She crossed her arms, her chin high. "So? Figure it out. You're good with money. Take a loan. Put it on your
I can't walk down the aisle in that cheap knockoff you've been stitching."
Her words hit like a slap. My hands curled into fists. "That knockoff," I said, voice trembling, "is the dress I've been making for you. Every stitch has been my time, my nights, my savings." She cut me off with a laugh so cold it froze me. "Time and scraps aren't enough, Elena. Do you want people to whisper that my sister dressed me in leftovers?" That evening, the family gathered in the living room. Sophie had rallied them all to her cause. My mother perched on the sofa, eyes hard. My father leaned forward in his chair, his hands clasped. Sophie stood tall, like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "She's refusing," Sophie announced dramatically. "She doesn't care if I look ridiculous on the most important day of my life." I shook my head. "I'm not refusing. I'm saying it's impossible. $12,000 for a dress isn't realistic." My mother's lips thinned. "Elena, stop being selfish. Sophie's wedding is once in a lifetime." My father chimed in, his voice gruff. "Your sister has always made us proud. You should be honored to contribute." Contribute. The word again. As if I were just a wallet with legs. I took a deep breath. I've already spent 7,000 of my own savings. I've worked nights, canceled plans, given everything I had. And still, it's not enough for you. Sophie sneered. That's because you never give enough. You've always been second best. Her words cut deeper than any blade. My father slammed his hand on the armrest. Enough! Elena, if you won't support this family, then maybe it's time you reconsider your place in it. The room fell silent. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My mother's eyes gleamed cold. He means perhaps the greatest gift you can give your sister is distance. Permanently. I stared at them. Sophie smirked, victory flashing in her eyes. You heard them. Maybe it's time you vanish. Something inside me cracked. I rose slowly, my legs trembling, but my voice clear. Fine. If that's what you want, I'll give you what you've asked for. You'll have your wedding, but you'll never see me again. I walked out of the room. Behind me, no one called my name. The door shut with a heavy finality, like the last stitch in a dress I no longer wanted to finish. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The words echoed in my head. Maybe it's time you vanish. Permanently. I had spent months breaking myself apart for them, and they discarded me like lint off a dress. By dawn, the decision was made. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and stared at my dwindling savings account. 7,000 gone. Thousands tied up in deposits. My chest ached. But then a sharp, steady calm took over. If they didn't want me, they wouldn't have me. Not my money. Not my labor. Not my silence. I picked up my phone and began dialing. First call, the florist. Cancel the order, I said firmly, and refund my deposit. The woman hesitated. But the wedding, it's no longer my concern. Second call, the caterer. Cancel the menu. Roast chicken, sides, everything. Yes, I understand the penalty. Send the refund. Third call, the band. Their manager sighed. We've already cashed the check. Then expect a chargeback. Keep the date free. You'll have no bride to play for. By noon, I'd unraveled most of Sophie's fantasy. Refunds trickled back. The wedding's backbone, flowers, food, music, was gone. I should have felt guilt. But what I felt instead was freedom. Let Sophie see how quickly the fairy tale collapses when her invisible sister disappears. The calls started by late afternoon. Sophie first. What the hell did you do? She screamed. The florist says everything's canceled. Do you have any idea? Her shrill voice bouncing off the walls. I gave you what you wanted, Sophie. Distance. Congratulations. You're free of me. I hung up before she could reply. Then came my mother. Her voice sharp and trembling. Elena, you've ruined your sister's day. People will be here in 2 weeks. Do you want to humiliate this family? I let out a bitter laugh. I already was the humiliation, remember? The one never good enough. Now you'll see how much I mattered when I'm gone. She gasped, as if I'd struck her. But I didn't stay on the line to comfort her. I ended the call. The last voicemail came from my father. His words were colder, measured, dripping with disappointment. "You're a disgrace, Elena. You've proven we were right. This family is better without you." I listened twice, letting the venom soak in. Then I deleted it. That evening, I sat at my sewing desk. The gown I had been crafting for Sophie still hung on the mannequin. Satin skirts spilling to the floor. Lace sleeves painstakingly stitched. It should have been beautiful. But now it was poisoned. I pulled out my scissors. Snip. The sound was clean. Final. Snip. Snip. I cut through the bodice, slashed the skirt, ripped the lace apart until it lay in ruins. When I finished, I sat in the silence, my hands trembling. Not from sadness, but release. Sophie had her wish. She wanted me gone? Then let her walk down the aisle with nothing but ashes of what I built. For the first time in years, I felt something fierce flicker in my chest. Not obedience, not silence, but power. And I knew I wasn't done yet. The morning of Sophie's wedding dawned bright and sharp, the kind of day people call perfect. I didn't wake up in my childhood home. I hadn't been there in 2 weeks. Instead, I was in a quiet motel on the edge of town.
At noon, the first texts rolled in, from a cousin. Where's the florist? No flowers at the church? Then from my aunt. There's no food. Guests are murmuring. Did something happen? Finally, from Nathan, my only friend who hadn't turned his back. Elena, it's a circus here. Sophie is screaming at the caterer, your mom's crying, and your dad looks like he's about to punch someone. I almost wish you were here to see it. I almost wished it too. But I stayed put. I didn't need to see it with my eyes. I could already imagine it. Gramsts filing into a church with bare altars and empty pews. Tabors at the reception hall stripped of flowers. Centerpieces missing. Plates bare. Bandless stage. A silent dance floor. The cracks of Sophie's fantasy widening for everyone to witness. At 1 p.m., the phone rang. My mother's number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice spilled out, frantic. "Elena, please, you have to fix this. People are whispering. Sophie's in tears. This is a disaster. If you care at all about this family, you'll come now." I deleted it. They wanted me gone. Now they could feel the weight of my absence. By 2 p.m., Sophie's meltdown was making rounds on social media. I saw a post tagged in the local Erie wedding group. Bride screaming in the parking lot. Apparently no food, no music. Guests leaving already. Feel bad, but wow. Another read, "Never seen such a disaster. Family tension boiling over. Bride yelling at her sister, who isn't even here? Yikes." I almost laughed. For years I'd been invisible. A shadow. And now, even in absence, I was the headline. By 3 p.m., Nathan called. "It's over," he said. Half the guests left. Sophie tried to walk down the aisle, but her dress, it wasn't even finished. Looked like something she grabbed last minute. People are whispering about her. About your parents. About the whole Reed family being a mess. He hesitated. "Do you want me to swing by and tell you the whole story in person?" Part of me wanted every detail. To hear how the empire they built on Sophie's pedestal had collapsed in front of everyone. But another part of me felt something stronger. Relief. No, I said softly. Let them live it. I don't need to. That evening, I took a walk through the quiet, eerie streets, the sun setting orange and pink across the lake. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I owed them anything. Their golden child's day had shattered, not because I ruined it, but because they built it on the lie that I was nothing. And now, with their lie exposed, I felt something dangerous and exhilarating. Freedom. The morning after Sophie's wedding, I woke to a dozen missed calls. Mom, Dad, even Sophie. I didn't answer, but I listened. First voicemail. Mom. Her voice sharp, trembling with fury. Elena, do you know what you've done? People are talking, saying the Reed family is a joke. Sophie couldn't even walk down the aisle properly. You've humiliated us. Humiliated her. I hope you're happy. Click. Second voicemail. Dad. His words were slower, but colder. You've crossed a line. You're no longer welcome in this family. Don't come to the house. Don't call. You made your choice. Live with it. Click. Third voicemail. Sophie. Her voice cracked from screaming, yet still venomous. You destroyed me. Everyone laughed at me, Elena. Lindsay's family called me a fraud. Brent. Her voice wavered. Brent says I embarrassed him. And it's your fault. You jealous, spiteful witch. I'll never forgive you. Never. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, staring at the carpet. This was what it came to. All the years I'd spent saving them, sacrificing for them, erased in a single night. And now, I was the villain in their story. By noon, the gossip spread online.
Your own family? Tag, poor Sophie.
Always knew that Elena girl was off. Each comment twisted the knife deeper. They had spun their version before I'd even woken. At 2 p.m., Nathan came by. He tossed his jacket on my chair, his expression stormy. They're dragging you through the mud, he said, pulling out his phone. Look. He showed me Sophie's Instagram story. A photo of her ruined dress, mascara streaks down her cheeks. The caption read, My own sister betrayed me on my wedding day. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. I'll never forget this. Thousands of likes. Comments flooding in. Unbelievable. She's better off without that kind of sister. What kind of monster ruins a wedding? I swallowed hard. They'll never let me tell my side, I whispered. Nathan leaned forward, his eyes fierce. Then stop waiting for their permission. Tell it yourself. The truth. Every detail. I hesitated. Years of conditioning had taught me to stay quiet, to swallow my pain, to keep the peace. But peace had never come. And now, maybe it was time to burn their lies to the ground. That night, I opened my laptop. Hands trembling, I typed. Title: The Sister Behind the Wedding That Collapsed. I wrote everything. I gave up a $40,000 contract years ago to save their failing grocery store. How I poured $7,000 and months of labor into Sophie's wedding. How they demanded more. More money, more sacrifice,
More silence. How when I finally said no, they told me the greatest gift I could give was to vanish. And how I did. When I hit publish, my heart raced. By morning, the post had gone viral. Thousands of shares. Comments pouring in. This is heartbreaking. You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for. Family doesn't mean blood. You did the right thing. For the first time, the world wasn't seeing me as the shadow. They were seeing me. By sunrise, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications exploded across
Comments, DMs. People from all over were reaching out after my story went live. Some offered words of encouragement. Others shared their own family betrayals. I was the forgotten sibling too. Thank you for saying what I never could. Don't let them guilt you. You deserve better. Your sister sounds toxic. Protect your peace. For the first time in my life, I wasn't screaming into silence. I was being heard. But not everyone agreed. Sophie had already posted a rebuttal. A glossy photo of herself in her half-ruined dress, flanked by friends who still supported her. The caption? Don't believe everything you read. Some people rewrite history to paint themselves as victims. I'll always hold my head high, no matter how others try to drag me down. Her followers showered her with sympathy. Ignore the haters, Sophie. She's just jealous. Yet beneath those, another current formed. But why would she lie? Elena's details sounded real. Sophie, didn't your family's grocery store collapse? Didn't Elena save it once? There's always two sides. Maybe your sister's finally telling hers. For once, the whispers weren't all against me. That afternoon, Nathan dropped by again. He was grinning, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You've struck a nerve, he said. Half the town's talking, but this time not just in Sophie's favor. He pulled up an article on his phone. Local gossip sites had already picked it up. Headline: Sophie Reed's wedding disaster exposes family rift. My hands shook as I read. For years, the Reed family's perfect image had been untouchable. Now their cracks were on display for everyone to see. But the real shift came 2 days later. I walked into a downtown cafe, head low, bracing for judgment. Instead, the barista looked up, recognition in her eyes. Hey, she said softly. You're Elena, right? From the story? I froze, unsure how to respond. She smiled. I just wanted to say, you're brave. Most people would have kept quiet. My sister treated me the same way. Reading your words felt like freedom. My throat tightened. All I could do was nod and murmur, thank you. It was the first time in my life someone looked at me not as Sophie's shadow, but as myself. Meanwhile, the Reed house wasn't faring so well. Through Nathan's updates and the endless gossip threads, I learned my parents were in damage control mode. My mom, Joyce, had posted a long message on Facebook insisting the family's private struggles should never have been made public. My dad, Jeffrey, gave curt statements to neighbors, dismissing me as unstable. But it wasn't working. Every attempt they made to discredit me only fanned the flames. People began asking hard questions. Matthias, had I given up a major contract to save their store years ago? Why had I spent thousands on Sophie's wedding, if I was supposedly selfish? Why had my parents let me vanish so easily? Their answers were hollow. Their golden image was tarnished. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the ruined dress I'd never finished. For years, I thought being invisible was my curse.
But maybe invisibility had been my armor. Now, stepping into the light, I realized something. They couldn't hurt me anymore. Not unless I let them. And for once, I didn't feel like running. I felt like standing. It was a Thursday evening when Sophie showed up at my door. No warning, no call. Just the slam of a car door, the click of heels on pavement, and then pounding fists against the wood. Elena, open up! We're talking about this right now! For a moment, I froze. My heart pounded, my body bracing the way it always had around her. Like prey before a predator. But then I remembered. I wasn't under her roof anymore. I didn't know her obedience. I opened the door slowly. Sophie stood there in a crisp coat, her makeup flawless, but her eyes were bloodshot, her lips trembling with rage. She stormed inside without waiting for an invitation.
Do you have any idea what you've done to me? She hissed, pacing the room. My reputation's in shambles. People whisper at the grocery store. Clients are canceling Brent's appointments at his law firm. Even Lindsay's parents say we're a disgrace. She spun on her heel, jabbing a finger at me. And it's all because of you. Your pathetic sob story online. Your lies. I let her words hang in the air, heavy and sharp. Then calmly, I asked, which part was a lie, Sophie? That I gave up a $40,000 contract to save the family store? That I spent $7,000 of my savings on your wedding? Or that Mom and Dad told me the best gift I could give was to vanish forever? She faltered, just for a second. Then her mask slid back on. You twist everything. You always have. You're jealous of me. Jealous that people actually love me, that I matter. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. Love? Sophie, they don't love you. They worship the image of you, the golden child who can do no wrong. And you've spent your whole life feeding on that while I held up the foundation. Her face flushed scarlet. Don't act like you're a martyr. Nobody asked you to give up that contract. Nobody forced you to pour money into the wedding. You chose it. Because deep down, you wanted to be needed. You wanted crumbs of approval. The words hit like a blade, sharp, cruel. True, in a way I hated to admit. But this time, I didn't crumble. You're right, I said, my voice steady. I did want to be needed. I wanted Mom to look at me with pride. I wanted Dad to say my name with respect. And I wanted a sister who didn't see me as her servant. But that was my mistake. I kept trying to earn love where there was none to give. Sophie blinked, thrown off by my calm. She recovered quickly, sneering. So what now? You think strangers on the internet loving your pity party makes you strong? That doesn't last, Elena. Family is forever. And you just burned yours to meeting her gaze. Family isn't forever when it destroys you, Sophie. Blood doesn't excuse cruelty. And you're no longer my family. Not in the way that matters. Her mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, Sophie looked small. Finally, she spat out. You'll regret this. You'll regret turning your back on us. I shook my head. No, Sophie. I regret wasting 30 years waiting for you all to see me. That ends tonight. I walked to the door and held it open. Her eyes darted to the threshold, then back to me, as if waiting for me to crumble, to beg, to undo my words.
but I didn't. With a huff, she brushed past me, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. The door shut behind her with a heavy thud. And for the first time, the silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom. After Sophie stormed out, the quiet wrapped around me like a quilt. But this time it wasn't suffocating. It was mine. For years, I'd filled my silence with their demands, with sewing machines whirring late into the night, with endless lists of chores, with the sound of my own heart breaking as I tried to hold a family together. Now I had space. Empty, frightening space. But also possibility. 2 weeks later, I walked into Shirley's Threads, a small tailor shop downtown. The owner, Shirley, was in her 60s, her glasses perched at the tip of her nose. She looked up from hemming a jacket and smiled warmly. "You're the young woman I've been hearing about," she said. "The one with the story online." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "That's me," I admitted. She set the jacket aside. "You've got grit. And stitches, from what I hear. I could use someone like you here. Part-time to start." I blinked. Work. Real work. Not scraps handed out by my family. Not thankless labor they'd erase. My own path. I said yes. The first day, Shirley handed me a box of fabric remnants and let my hands remember what they'd always known: how to turn thread into beauty. By closing time, a small dress hung on the mannequin. Rough, imperfect, but mine. Shirley clapped, her eyes sparkling. "There she is," she whispered. "Not Sophie's sister. Not the shadow. Just you." Within a month, I had regular shifts. Customers trickled in. Bridesmaids needing adjustments. Men bringing suits. Mothers asking for custom work. And for the first time, people thanked me. Not Sophie. Not my parents. Me. One afternoon, a woman in her 40s tried on a dress I'd altered. She twirled in the mirror, tears in her eyes. "It fits perfectly," she said, hugging me. "You saved my daughter's prom night." The warmth in her voice lodged deep in my chest. It was the acknowledgement I'd starved for my whole life. But this time it wasn't crumbs. It was genuine. Meanwhile, back in Erie, the Reed family saga continued to unravel. Nathan sent updates. Mitt Parents' grocery store, already fragile, had shuttered completely. Jeffrey was working part-time at a warehouse. Mom, Joyce, was clinging to church charity drives, her pride in tatters. Ophie's marriage had stumbled. Rumors swirled of shouting matches, her new in-laws wary of her entitlement. And through it all, they kept blaming me. I should have felt satisfaction, maybe even revenge. But what I felt was distance, like watching a storm across a valley. I could see the lightning, but it couldn't touch me anymore. One evening, Nathan called. "You sound different," he said after we chatted about my new clients. "Different how?" I asked. "Lighter. Like you finally cut the string they'd been tugging your whole life." I smiled into the phone. "I did, Nathan. And I'm never tying it back." That night, I sat at my sewing desk, my own in my small rented apartment, and unfurled the roll of soft blue fabric I'd bought with a dress I'd wear myself. A dress stitched not with desperation or hunger for approval,
but was something I'd never let myself feel before. Love, for me. Every snip of the scissors was a promise. Every stitch, a new thread in the life I was finally weaving. And as the fabric took shape, so did I. Not the shadow, not the backup, but Elena. Whole, free, and finally enough.